Welcome, everybody, to Boring Breakfast. This is a really beautiful series co-hosted by the Spinoff and Boring Oat Milk. I've been lucky enough to host the first series we've done in Auckland, and this is the beginning of our second series. So we're taking it on the road, and we're really thrilled to be in Wellington. So thank you for having us. My name is Sophie Gilmour. I am, broadly speaking, a food and hospitality person. And I've done lots of bits and pieces with the Spinoff over the years, and also currently have a food business myself in Auckland called Pietas. I sit on the board of a couple of food charities, and I have a consultancy business that does food and hospitality things. So this is me in my element talking about food and wine and hospitality and all the things that really make me tick. So it's exciting to be here, and I hope we have an awesome morning. Welcome to you guys. So I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, please.
Hey, I'm Juno. We're from Margot in Newtown. This is Tom.
Hi.
We run a restaurant in Newtown called Margot, and we have a little bar next door, which is called Next Door.
Great.
Sorry. And yeah, I guess we're here because we love hospitality as well.
Yeah, life tragics, I guess.
Awesome.
Kia ora. My name's Doug. I've spent the last 14 years kind of hospo adjacent with Coffee Supreme, so coffee roaster and supplier here in Wellington. We do run some of our own hospitality businesses as well, so coffee-focused cafes. Two here in Wellington, one in Christchurch, and some internationally as well.
Beautiful. I thought we could kick off with each of you explaining to the room what your role is, technically, and then what you actually do.
Shall I go first again?
Go on.
Well, I suppose, like, Tom and I split the business between us. So I'm the general manager and Tom's our head chef. But for me, that sort of means, like, I do everything front of house related, and then I also plug all of the gaps that don't necessarily fall between those two things. So that means answering lots of questions, I would say, is like my biggest responsibility. Yeah. And then there's a plethora of things that change a lot, but most of it is all about, like, HR for me, and like food, well, drinks, and then service, which is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and then training. Yeah.
You did some nice design yesterday as well, which was really good.
Thank you.
I was really impressed. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that was actually the reason for the questioning, because it's like, technically I'm the general manager or I'm in charge of front of house.
Yeah.
It's like, but in reality, what I do is absolutely everything.
Yeah.
All right, Tom.
I chop the carrots and
You do a very good job of that. We had a delicious meal last night.
I'm glad you thought the carrots were good.
No
and
carrots on the
I
menu.
pretend to do... Yeah, true. And I pretend to do a bit of accounting with the business as well, which is something I've learned in the last year and a bit. Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Not often you see a chef who likes to crunch numbers.
Oh, I don't like to do it, but Juno does everything else
Needs
apart from the
must.
cooking. So I was like, I can do this. It's fine.
He's very good at it.
Yeah, nice. Doug.
My role for Supreme has largely been in brand and marketing space. So I guess you would sum that up in a wider sense as creating a great brand experience. So on the tools, graphic design, hopefully creating good spaces, doing good things, and looking at a wider brand experience for all customers. So it's cafe owners or hospitality operators from a wholesale business, online customers buying coffee for home as well. So it's a view on the wider brand experience for all our customers.
Yeah, and much more complex, I think, than I had originally realised in terms of how many different brand touch points you have. So it's a big job, but a cool job too, because you're not doing one thing or doing branding in the typical sense, are you?
Yes, the business is quite complex. it's always a nice reminder when you explain it to someone. We import an ingredient from all around the world down to the bottom of the world here in New Zealand. As a raw ingredient, we turn it into a product that we hand over to a business as an unfinished product for them to trust them to turn it into a finished product to serve to their customers. And so we're a wholesaler, we're an online retailer, we're a hospitality operator and a distributor of some products as well. So there's lots of, pretty wide range of brand touch points that we've kind of got to be across. And so we do most of brand and marketing in-house.
I thought we could talk about Wellington because I think there's something really beautiful and unique to Wellington, which is kind of the small size of the place with the outsized reputation for all things culinary, hospitality. And also when at this point in time, hospitality is coming out of a really, let's just say stressful period of time where we've actually had every single metric of the business kind of attacked in one way or another. So with COVID, it was sales. Obviously, we couldn't open. Then it was supply chain, so that was cost of goods. And then there was a staffing crisis, and then that was labour. And these are all like the biggest levers that we can pull. And we're coming out of it now. And I think a really great thing that came out of my conversations with you guys was this kind of sense of enjoying the current status quo. And I think there's something really lovely about that being how successful you guys are and the joy that you're getting out of what you're doing. I thought something we all had in common was when we started our hospitality journey. So one way or another, we were all about 14 years old, up to hair and dishes. I listened to a really interesting podcast this week. Someone was interviewing Graham Norton, and they were speaking about what does he attribute his success as a television broadcaster to. And he said, the only thing I can point at is my experience as a waiter in hospitality. So I wanted you each to talk to us about your first job and what you think that taught you.
Well, my first job was, for all you Wellingtonians, at Empire Cinema and Cafe, which was stone's throw from my house down the road. I really wanted to work in it, mainly because I was young and I really liked their soy hot chocolates. So I went in with a CV like once a week for probably about 6 weeks until I wore down this really lovely manager who eventually took pity on me and I guess a position opened up. And then I started doing, I was meant to do 1 night a week, but I very quickly got obsessed with how fun the work culture was. And so I was doing 3 nights a week. While I was, I don't know, what year are you in when you're 14? Like year 10? Yeah. So I would go there after school and then I was meant to finish at like 9, but I'd totally stay until like 10:30 and then walk up. And then, but yeah, I started just like scooping ice cream and ushering. And then I asked if they would teach me how to make those soy hot chocolates. And then, they taught me how to make coffee, and I got super hooked on that. So I started out as a barista. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that I guess my first job taught me was like, well, how to make coffee. But just like what a great escape like hospitality work culture can be. I was going through a pretty tough time at high school. So just like making friends in this like space that are full of misfits and everyone's just there to get some work done, but mostly have a good time, you know. That was my first lesson, really. I'm sure I had more informative things that I could say, but
that's cool though, because that kind of sparks the fire, doesn't it? And then
totally.
Look at all the other things that you thought that you might pursue or not, and where you've ended up. Which is cool.
Absolutely.
Tom, tell us about your first gig.
At Nelson College, I grew up in Nelson as a teenager, I guess, and we had an incredible hospitality tutor, a guy called Quinton Gately, who's just come back there after a little break. He's fantastic, like old school chef, but like really knows how to deal with boys, especially because it was a boys' school, but like great work ethic, put in so much effort, and he was like, "Do you want a job? You're good." And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, "Go see these people." I was like, "Okay, cool." You know, little 15-year-old me going on down, had my CV in, you know, which had obviously nothing on it because, you know, it's your first job. You're like, "Oh, yeah, I was really good at school," someone said there. And it was a place called Bar Delicious in Nelson, which is now defunct. Yeah, just
Iconic name.
yeah, wow, yeah, Bar Delicious. Yeah, and just washing dishes, and I fell in love with again the culture part of it. You know what I mean? The food was right. There's still like a couple of things from there. I'm like, oh, you know, I could use that, like putting some raisins in. Maybe at home. Yeah, but yeah, I really love the culture, and like I liked school because I like hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
Some of them are here today, which is really nice. But I never felt engaged by it. Like I could do the work if I put my mind to it, but I didn't feel connected with it. And when I started working in kitchens, I was like, oh, I feel connected and engaged.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it says about me, but I always feel motivated to do stuff for other people generally.
Yeah.
So I think that, it's oh, nice, we can get paid to do this.
Yeah.
And I feel motivated to do that as well.
That's what I thought was really lovely in the interview that I referred to before. Graham Norton spoke about hospitality being not the act of what you're doing, but, you know, the way that you can make someone feel, or putting people at ease, anticipating what they would like, how to turn a situation around, how to, you know, there's so many things, I think, how to work under pressure, how to talk to people you don't know. All of that I feel super grateful for.
It's an art. It's an artistry thing, right?
Yeah, and I really feel that I actually have said a few times recently, I think I learnt more from those roles in hospitality than I learnt from 5 years as a lawyer in a big firm, you know? It's like those are very specific skills, but what they now refer to as soft skills is like all the things that hospitality people are really expert at.
Yeah.
For sure.
Doug, tell us about your first gig and maybe how you got into branding and design, because it's not the traditional...
Yeah, okay, my first hospo gig, I grew up quite rural, so I only really got into, you know, going out for coffee when I moved to Wellington.
But la-di-da.
Yeah. And I used to, on my way to work, I would always call past Milk Crate on Ghuznee Street. At the time, Ben Lennart, who has Almighty Drinks, owned it and was like on the floor, and that was my coffee spot. And eventually I was like, oh dude, can I help out one day? Can you teach me how to make coffee? I'd like volunteer my time like early before I go to work. And he was like, absolutely, I'd love that. And he gave me a shot, taught me how to make coffee, and I'd do like an hour and a half like before going to work. And so I think that's probably where my spark and love for the industry started. And I think the big thing I think at the time there was the community that surrounded that spot on the street. I was not new to town, but I think the big thing for me, it was where I made friends. And I think he did a really great job of building a little community around that spot. You know, it was a very simple offering. I don't think, you know, you need this wildly big, complex cafe to create something quite meaningful. It was like coffee and pastries and good sandwiches. So I think that's probably my first introduction. And then some time making coffee at Nico Cafe when Paul and Kelda had the cafe in the City Gallery. Learning under a couple of real pros, I would say, on what, hard and consistent work looks like.
As an out-of-towner, that was like the busiest cafe I'd ever been to in Wellington. I was like, wow, when I was first here.
Yeah, I think it was... for us, as they were a customer, and when you had out-of-towners or like team members from out of town, you're like, where do you go for breakfast? You're like, oh, Nico Cafe, hands down.
And now you say that was Rita, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, like
Yes,
if you
I'm
can get
going
a
there
table, of course, go.
It's so good. It's so good.
So yes, and that kind of legacy goes with them, and their customers will come with them to whatever they do next. So
I interviewed that team for Wellington on a Plate just like 2 days before lockdown a couple of years ago, and beautiful story.
Incredible.
Yeah.
They're amazing humans.
So, Doug, how did you shimmy away from the coffee machine and into InDesign?
okay,
or
so,
whatever you designers do?
I was working at Nico Cafe, and a friend of mine, Johnny, was working at Supreme in Auckland. In a mix of, we had a cafe up there called Good One, and he said, hey, you should apply for this, and I did, which was an account management role at Supreme, so looking after wholesale customers, doing some sales, doing some training of how to make coffee, and I got the job. And at the time, there was no internal, I guess, brand or marketing department. It was sort of external agency work delivered to the business. And so inevitably there was things needed to be done or designed or logos put on stuff. And so I'd always had an interest in design and had been, tinkering around all the time. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, what if it was like this? And so eventually it sort of grew into a role in the business. That was like pre-social media. I think our first social media was Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And so that kind of landscape in terms of what a business can do itself has changed massively in terms of its marketing. It quickly became a role that sort of I fell into.
And obviously learnt on the job and created your own role. And it's really, I think that's really unique. And for people in the room that are interested in design, we'll talk more about your approach, but can you explain what the Supreme brand looked like when you first rocked up and how you would say it looks now?
I think it was, I don't want to be critical.
It was terrible.
No, it was of the time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was different.
Yeah.
I think it's just been like a long evolution of like what feels right in the time. It maybe read more energy drink company than sophisticated coffee company.
Yeah. Okay, cool. There's something really lovely about when you get to sit in front of people that are really expert at what they do, and all three of these people really are, and they're really passionate. So I would like to ask you, let's start with you, Tom. How can you describe your approach to food, your personal approach?
What I learned, I've learned throughout people, is just buy really good quality ingredients. You know what I mean? Like, buy the best that you can afford, and then treat them with respect, I guess. Like, season them well. Like, know your acids, your salts, your seasonings, how to cook every single little thing well. You know what I mean? Cooking's not just being good at cooking. It's frying things well, or chopping things well, or knowing how to blanch things and take them out well, or it's a lot of knowing how to do a lot of little things.
Yeah.
So if you know and look after each step of the process, then the end result will be really, really good. And that's something we tried to do at Margot, is just get some wonderful ingredients, which probably wasn't so easy in New Zealand 10 years ago. But
what was the garnish that was on the fish last night?
The mussel sauce. Celtis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you got specific suppliers that you're working with to source unique ingredients intentionally, or are these growers that you're already...
We've got a couple of organic farmers who are with us. That's a new one that we got this year called Birdsong Farms, who started out. It's run by an ex-chef and his partner, and they grow... they saw a gap in the market for sort of more unique ingredients, you know what I mean? Because I don't think most... there's not a lot of diversity in what New Zealand grows, I think, which is sad because, but it's real because it doesn't make money. There's not enough of an industry really to support a lot of, especially vegetables, like kind of unique, and there's not the heritage of growing, really high quality vegetables there for sale. People obviously doing their own ham.
Yeah, I went to cooking school in Ireland, and I remember they were putting like Purcell and there was just a bunch of stuff that lovage was in everything, it was just a standard ingredient.
Yeah.
And it's like we've really narrowed
Yeah.
down what we do.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool to hear that the quality, I mean, it's really in line with your philosophy, obviously, but have you ever tasted a bulk produced carrot next to one that has been grown organically? It is like mind blowing, the flavour that has just sort of like seeped away from the vegetables over the years. I did like a close your eyes and eat a carrot that's like a huge one. They look like horse carrots, from the supermarket.
Yeah.
And you honestly wouldn't know what you're eating if you didn't have your eyes open and see that it was orange.
Yeah.
And then you taste one that really tastes carroty and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that really came through in your food. And when we spoke, I think that the attention that you spoke about giving things, and a lot of the time it's detail, so it's time and attention that you give to a vegetable. If it's a beautiful ingredient to start with, then it doesn't need messing with.
No.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of what we do. I mean, very ingredient driven. Try and keep it like mostly vegetarian. Have a little bit of fish. I think try and keep our menu in proportion of things that you should probably eat in today's world or diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the small, what do you say, rustic European shared plates.
Yeah, that's our tagline.
Thank you.
You got it.
But that was like, you could not have coined a better phrase for the menu, you know? Okay, cool. Juno, tell us about your personal approach to, let's say, front of house hospitality.
Well, I think sort of like going off basically what Tom said, we sort of have the same philosophy for everything we do, which I sort of just look at as a duty of care. So where Tom really respects every vegetable and cooking process, I take the same approach with like front of house training and service and like wine list and cocktails. It's like everything matters, and everyone can learn how to do whatever needs to be done if you just give that person a little bit of time and like respect and understanding of how they learn and that sort of thing. So it's just like everything, I try to be really, I guess, thoughtful about everything.
Yeah, everything has a purpose, right? And if you understand the purpose, then you're more likely to go towards the goal.
Yeah.
I guess.
I feel like that will be reflected in what Doug does as well. It's like, it's just, everything is very intentional. Yeah.
And it sounds like you're super present with it. I think when we were speaking, I asked your age because I was like, you make me feel like I'm just like this exhausted person that used to talk like that, and now I'm like, oh God, they're not listening anyway, So I think it's really cool that you're so present and in it and passionate about it, and because you get a beautiful result.
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to like training and service, I've always been like
a massive nerd.
Yes, I've been a massive nerd.
Love that.
I learned from two very special people who some people in this room will know, Sally Thompson from Mighty Mighty, and Katie Woodhead, who was the ops manager for Scopa 1154 past the Breslin, which is where we met, and all of the restaurants that they had at the time. And both of them were just so like kind and gave everyone so much respect, but also were massive like hospitality nerds.
Yeah.
And so I just fed off that energy.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think is most commonly underestimated about hospitality is people think anyone can do it, and anyone can do the skills, but the ability to do the job well in terms of how you make people feel. And whenever I'm training hospitality staff, I always say you have no idea what your power is. You can literally tell people what to order and they will order it. Yeah. If you do it well, you can figure out what kind of a day they're having and what would be perfect for them. And then that guy might like a martini after his dinner, but that woman would really like a cappuccino. So maybe go and ask her if she wants coffee. And it's all that little detail stuff I get quite nerdy about too.
Yeah,
but
fully.
That's what makes you, so successful at what you do.
I think also, like, yes, anyone can learn hospitality, but it's difficult. But anyone who cares can learn hospitality.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing. You have to find a way to be interested and care about what everyone in the room might want.
Yeah.
And then once you've got that, you just need some good training.
And I think that reminds me of something you said, Doug, which is there's real-time feedback and validation when you're doing it really well. And that's really brilliant because that begets more success and more focus and more attention and more care. So, Doug, tell us about how do you describe your approach to design?
Well, can I just say to Tom's, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, but the crudité at the Breslin, what's that?
Oh, that was at Cinderella.
Cinderella.
Sorry, Cinderella?
Easy to confuse. Same venue,
Sorry.
same chef.
Same chef, same venue.
Sorry.
Yeah. Just been standing there for years.
Cinderella. Like, still, I think one of the food memories I come back to. Vegetables, super simple, crazy delicious.
Yeah.
Our intent, always being intentional. I guess I'm talking from a brand experience perspective. We love to nerd out on details like account forms. We design our own account forms when it's not necessarily required. It's just like getting the job done. But like, for us, there's always is it on brand? So it's from an account form to packaging to a website. So it's, I think every little touch point for your business or your brand is noticed, and it's the accumulation of all those details that makes something quite special. Yes, intentional, building in little details. We like to build in discoverables and things that make people smile. I think that's some of the hospitality in terms of service. It could just be simply making that person smile. They could be having a shit day. How can you just elevate their day through one simple act? I think is the power of, I guess, what we can do.
And something quite interesting you said to me was the value in staying the course. Like, we were speaking last night about minding your own business, not worrying about what's happening in market trends and what's happening around you, but giving yourself the credit that you deserve to keep doing what you're doing. And that's actually the best way to be successful rather than to bend and flex all the time.
Absolutely, I think, and we're not immune to it either. Social media is a dangerous beast where you're like constantly evaluating yourself against lots of different things. And so I think it's really important to just come back to like, sure, we could be doing that because that's really cool, but like, who are we, what are we about? Like, just do you, and that is truly authentic, and people notice that. I think people are clever enough to see through the bullshit, and when you're just trend hopping or whatever it might be, it might work for a time, but I think if you've got a long lens, sugar rushing like that can be quite dangerous.
It kind of comes back to the things that you can't see. It's a feeling, right? So if you get it right, it feels right, and your customer will feel right when they're in the space. So if it's jumping all over the place, the feeling won't be quite right, will it?
Yep.
I think like that's a really good point. Like, we're obviously pretty fresh to business. But like, that's definitely a constant thing. Like, every couple of months I'm like, oh no, should we be doing this? And then Tom's like, no, we should be doing our own thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then we do our own thing and people like it. And that's amazing to me.
That's an insane feeling.
That's
when people like the thing that you're doing, oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I think also there's that concept of having been in wonderful workspaces and not recognizing that you yourself are actually gathering expertise. Like, the reason that people like what you do, even though you still feel like you're 20 years old, is that you're not. You're actually, you've got great experience between you, and you've become really good at what you do. And I think that's something that everybody deals with, is that kind of imposter syndrome thing. And you guys spoke.
Yeah.
You guys spoke really lovely, beautifully about each other, and the fact that this has been successful working together so far, and it's because you share a philosophy and you check in with each other, so you each respect what, Juno's front of house and her drinks expertise, and then she's tasting your food and giving you feedback, and you said, I trust her opinion. And
100%, yeah.
so the thing that you've got seems to be working really well.
Thank you.
And it's new, like you say, for you guys. Running a business isn't easy, and hospitality in particular. You're supposed to be an expert at everything now, from health and safety to being a great employer, and then teaching the actual skills. And then we all know that it's super challenging with training a lot of young people as well. Yeah. So if you could impart some wisdom on the room, what's something that you two feel that you've learned, a lesson that you've learned already that has been really valuable?
I guess that no two people are the same. I guess you have to take a specific approach with everyone and manage them differently. You know what I mean? Some people respond to like feedback as you're going along, or some people, for like a quiet word, or some people you can just be like, don't do that, please.
And the same goes for motivating people, doesn't it? Some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by praise. And if you offer the person that just wants praise and validation $50, you don't even see a change in behaviour.
No.
You know?
Yeah. They're like, oh, what's this one? Thanks.
Yeah. Doug, what have you got that you could share with the room? A piece of wisdom from your experience, 14 years at Supreme.
One thing that has always stuck with us and still gets spat out around the office, which is, we're not here to fuck spiders.
Indeed.
I've always found that confusing, but I totally get it as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty weird one, but I get it too. I'm like, okay. And so it first came out when, at the time, Al, who you know, Sophie, rung Chris, and he was like, hey, I need to get a drill. And it was at the time of building a cafe in Auckland. And he's like, should I buy the Makita, or should I get the cheap one? And he's like, Al, we're not here to fuck spiders.
Yeah.
Which is basically just go get the good one, or just get the job done.
Very useful expression. You could probably say that to anything and everyone would go, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, should we go out for coffee? Hey, we're not here to fuck spiders. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think...
makes it feel important as well. You're like, we should get coffee. This is good.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah.
How I guess I interpret that is really like take action. Don't be stifled with trying to make something perfect all the time. Test and learn. To your point around getting feedback, I think it's never been easier to get feedback, even if you didn't ask for it. So take that and learn from it. I think our approach has been to evolve the brand, not rebrand. So I guess I'd like to think we haven't rebranded in 14 years, but the brand has moved significantly. But to some people, maybe it hasn't. It's probably been quite consistent, but there are a lot of things that have changed. I think try some things. Is the sort of...
Be brave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and be genuine. I think that's I guess a big lesson is like, well, not that I wasn't being genuine before, but I guess like we started doing Margot, and I didn't think that sort of we were operating at like a level that might be rewarded and accolade, like a chef's hat, for example. Not because I didn't think we were good, but just because I really didn't think that we were sort of like operating within like all of the little
like the bounds of
of that. And then lo and behold, we got awarded one, which was the biggest shock of my life.
Yeah.
But I guess like the things that we do that sort of line up with that are all just like really genuine service, being honest and genuine with your team, and like just trying to do an honest and genuine thing, and
not pushing against something that doesn't feel authentic to you.
No.
Tom spoke about it being an extension of his love language anyway. So looking after people, hosting them, putting them at ease. Like if that's what you're doing in your own home anyway, how good that you get to do it for a job.
Dinner parties every day.
You are not here to fuck spiders.
No.
Sure not.
No.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes. So I wanted to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on the Wellington hospitality scene. I'm going to start with you, Doug. How you see it now and what your hopes are for the future.
I see Wellington as being, and we were just talking about this before and reminiscing about the good old days, but I think Wellington is very long burn. There are, I know there are lifers everywhere, but maybe a higher percentage of lifers in Wellington.
Can confirm as an outsider that people that are in Wellington are just loving Wellington so much. It's nice.
I think there's a little less like open and sell the business as a business model in Wellington, which I think is nice because you get kind of operators who are in it for a longer period, and you get more consistency. You get to know them. Maybe that means there's less variety and less excitement and less openings, perhaps. I like to think that Wellington is starting to adopt perhaps a little bit more of an international lens.
Do you mean in its cuisine or in its focus?
Standards, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
I think
just owning the being world-class thing.
Yeah, I think not to dwell on the last few years, yes, it's been tough, and what that's maybe meant is like some closures, and so the ones that are still around are doing good things and to a high standard, both service, food, branding, social media, whatever it could be. So I think there's this kind of, all in all, I hope that there's like a general sort of standard uplift that hopefully makes for a good hospitality environment.
Cool. You two, what are your thoughts?
I think it's tough at the moment, really. There's been lots of closures of like really good restaurants recently in the last couple of years. I don't know. There's a lot of restaurants and cafes in Wellington, but there's a good population base, but there's not heaps of money. Not compared to, Auckland. There's quite a lot of money and obviously a lot of people to support that. Wellington, I think, has some of the best service in the world. Definitely has the best service in New Zealand of people. Like I think the genuine service you get from people here is unrivaled anywhere, really. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we probably can't rest on our laurels on being Wellington's hospitality capital. I don't think we are that anymore. Yeah, it's a tough one.
I think we've got lots of people that still want to be Wellington's
for sure,
New Zealand's
Yeah.
hospitality capital, but it definitely, the hospitality industry specifically has taken, everyone's taken hits last few years, but yeah, Wellington's definitely still doing a lot of this. And we have to evolve. The world has changed. Lots of people work from home now, and that's really affected inner city businesses. We're super lucky being in the suburbs because that doesn't affect us as much. Yeah. But we do also we're also a year and a half old, so I can't really speak to normalities, but I've worked in the city for a long time, and it's still definitely there is no clear these months are busy, these months are quiet. It's just 2 weeks you're busy, and then suddenly you're empty again for a couple of weeks, and then so I think it's still reeling a bit, and I think we need to really look to the future instead of being when's life going to go back to normal, because that's not normal anymore.
No, it's not the same. People have moved on.
It feels to me like Wellington hospitality is less crowded, so there is arguably greater quality as a proportion of the whole industry. I think what you said about service is really interesting. I've definitely felt that when I've been here, and I live in Auckland.
Yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to add is that, so I run a food charity called Donate. You know, when you go to restaurants at Christmas time and they add $2 to the bill?
Yeah.
Wellington, through much less venues, raises almost the same amount of money as Auckland because of its service staff.
That's beautiful.
So there's one group here, I'm not sure if Dean's here, but Kisa, Ombra, Mr. Goes.
Cool.
Yeah.
The group of them
Yeah.
raised nearly $10,000 for your local city mission in November and December. You know, on top of the challenges, on top of all the things that you've got to try and deal with and manage, everybody, it feels to me like people are willing to extend themselves, and also your patrons are really ready to jump behind causes, which kind of speaks to the general joy of the whole industry, doesn't it?
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. We've got really beautiful customers in the city.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not so many of them. So that, I think, speaks to why
The
a
New
lot of
Zealand
places are
population
quieter.
problem.
Yeah.
But like, that's also what makes Wellington so beautiful, is that it's a bit smaller.
Yeah, they
for
had
sure.
someone walk into Umbra, I think, just before Christmas and see the Donate thing on the menu and just put $500 on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing, eh?
That's all right.
Well, thank you, everyone. I know you're not thrilled about being put in the hot seat, but you've done a wonderful job, and it's nice of you to share what's in your brains with the rest of us.
Yeah.
I think Wellington's lucky to have you all, and we feel lucky to be here for the series. Thank you, everyone, for coming this morning.
Yeah, thanks for the coffee and treats and stuff. That was nice.
Cool. And have a lovely day. Round of applause
Thanks,
for our
Sophie.
panel, guys.
Thank you.